Get ready for spring with these wonderful carrot cake cookies. Walnuts, raisins, and candied ginger combine with spices of cinnamon and nutmeg to create a delicious cookie that is both satisfying as well as super flavorful. Top it off with a homemade cream cheese icing, and this will be a cookie that you and your family will soon forget. Get started with 2 to 3 medium carrots that you're going to finely grate into about 1 cup of carrot mix. Use a hand grater for this and not your food processor. From there, you're going to use a half a cup of room temperature butter, which you're going to slice up. You're going to use 1 large egg. You're also going to be using white sugar, 1/4 cup of white sugar and 3/4 cup of brown sugar. I use this turbinado sugar because it doesn't clump. Also, you're going to use 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. You're going to be using about half a teaspoon of baking soda. And then to make the filling of the cookie, you're going to use these crystallized ginger slices or candied ginger. You're going to be using walnuts, which you're going to be chopping up, as well as raisins, which you're also going to be chopping up. The spices that you're putting in the cookie are going to be ground cinnamon, as well as some freshly grated nutmeg, and a little bit of sea salt as well. You're also going to be using vanilla extract in both the cookie and the frosting. And for the frosting, you're going to use about 4 ounces of cream cheese, as well as a 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. You're going to start with half a cup of butter, which is going to be room temperature and sliced up. To that, you're going to be adding the brown sugar, 3/4 cup of brown sugar, as well as a 1/4 cup of white sugar. Once you do that, you're going to mix up the brown sugar, white sugar, and butter in a large mixing bowl. Make sure to use a large mixing bowl, and when you do it, be sure to continually scrape the bowl as well as pushing the mixture down into the bowl, and continue to mix it up until it becomes as smooth and creamy as possible. You can see I'm scraping the bowl here. You want to scrape, 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 so everything gets back into the middle of the food processor bowl, mixing bowl, I guess, not a food processor. And then from there, you're just going to kind of pop it back in, turn it on again, and keep mixing this around. This will take about 7 minutes altogether to get it as smooth as possible. Now you're going to crack the egg open, throw it in there. And to that, you're also going to be adding about 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And then once you add both of those, you're going to continue to mix until everything becomes smooth and creamy as possible. Now that the wet ingredients have been combined, you're going to build your dry ingredients. Start with 1.5 cups of flour, and try and measure the flour with a spoon that you just put into the measuring cup. Don't stick the measuring cup directly into your flour container. You're going to use 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. You're going to be using 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. It's really annoying. They make this cinnamon where you can't stick the whole teaspoon inside of it. You have to use 1/2 teaspoon if you're actually needing it inside the cinnamon jar. I like to use freshly grated nutmeg. I feel like I don't use enough nutmeg to go through the grated stuff, so I like to do it myself. And I also think it tastes way more nutmeggy when you do this, so just take a grater and grate about 1/4 teaspoon of the fresh nutmeg. At this point, I also put about 1/4 teaspoon of salt in there just to bring everything together. Now, what I'm going to do with the candied ginger, walnuts, and raisins is I'm going to put them on the cutting board and then do a rough chop. You can see I'm kind of chopping them up into smaller pieces. Obviously, it depends how much you like your chunks of ginger and chunks of walnut and raisins. I like to kind of bite into it and taste the chunks of ginger myself. But if you don't, you can also even put this through a food processor and grate it down even finer. I like the rough chop just because, like I said, I like to have chunks of it inside the cookie. So at this point, I'm whisking my dry ingredients together just to kind of mix them up. And then from there, I'm going to now incorporate the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients. And what you want to do here is you just kind of pour it in there. And then when you stir it together, you want to do it, nice and easy for as little time as possible. The more that the flour stirs together with the other ingredients, the more gluten that's released and the denser cookie you're going to get. So just throw everything into the mixing bowl, turn it on, and then just let it kind of mix together, like I said, for as little time as possible it takes to kind of get the wet ingredients mixed with the dry ingredients. So after mixing, here's what you're left with. The dough is a little bit kind of soft, and at this point I'm going to be adding the chopped up carrots as well as the raisins, ginger, and walnuts. From here, it's just a matter of kind of mixing everything together as best you can. You don't want to use your mixer at this point. Just use a rubber spatula or some sort of contraption like that. And you're just going to kind of mix everything just so it gets nice and incorporated, as you can see. After this dough has chilled for an hour, you're going to make about golf ball size cookie balls. And you're going to be using a sheet pan and then cook it for 350 degrees for about 9 to 13 minutes. While it's cooking, it's time to make the frosting. You're going to start with 1 stick of butter, which is about half a cup, as well as 4 ounces of cream cheese. Mix those together and then start adding half a cup of powdered sugar at a time until you're left with this thick, delicious looking frosting. The cookies have now come out of the oven. You can see they're cooling on a wire rack, and then from there it's just a matter of putting frosting on for everyone but my wife, who likes her cookie to be a bit healthier. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe as well as click the like button, and then I hope to see you guys back for some more fun cooking adventures. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Stay safe and wash your hands.